innovation, and technology, that's on everybody's mind right now, and it's very exciting. So we're going to get into it. And to lead us in this panel, the founder and managing director of Smells Like Business. I was just on his podcast a few weeks ago. It was fantastic. Let's hear it for Tom Pettit. And all the rest of them, come out. Everybody come out right now.
Thanks. Love it. You want any water? I'd like a water. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome to innovation and technology in the cannabis space. Yes, Ngaio, thank you. Ngaio, thank you for the wonderful introduction. We've already had him on the show. I've also had a lovely conversation with Jürgen. That's still not been published yet, but it will be. Yeah, so I think we'll start just with a brief introduction from each of our panelists. I'll start the show. So my name's Tom Pettit. I'm the co-founder of Smells Like Business. We run a marketing agency. We started out with copywriting, content creation. So over the last few years, obviously, AI has had a little role in our company. And I think ChatGPT, for better or for worse, is a part of our workflow these days. And it's how you integrate these different technologies into your service to provide, obviously, the best outcome for everyone. Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. Jürgen?
Yes, thanks, Tom. Yeah, my name is Jürgen Bickel from Storz & Bickel. We are producing the famous Volcano vaporizer and the newest Venti vaporizer and other devices. We are located here in Germany, in Tuttlingen. We are doing this now since 24 years, so we have quite some experience in the field and happy to be here at the ICBC.
Hi there, guys. Thank you, Tom. I'm Yogesh. I'm the CEO of Buffalo Extraction Systems. We help automate the processing and extraction technologies for the cannabis and the hemp space. Other than this, we come with experience in the herb, spice, and essential oil industries. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Chris Sinokori, originally from New York. Thank you for having me as well. 3Win Corporation, we're a global vape distributor, started in 2014, and we've been very fortunate to be coupled with C-Cell, and here we are.
Great.
Hi, Nick Taraborelli with the Paxium Group. We're a manufacturer of automated packaging systems. We have facilities in Canada, the US, as well as Europe. So for about the last 8 years, we've been manufacturing automated solutions for the cannabis industry with about 300 installations globally.
Okay, great. So, obviously we have a few guests across the value chain, which is really good, from extraction to devices to post-harvesting. On that note, maybe we can start with automation, because I think that's a big one in the space, and there's a lot of innovation going on there. And maybe, Nick, we could start with you. How are you using automation in Paxium?
I was hoping I was going to be the second or the third question, but perfect. So being here in Europe, it's actually, it's been fantastic. We received a very large order a couple weeks ago in the Netherlands for a large installation that we're going to be installing in the next few months. For us, it's been a learning experience understanding what's important here for the European market. We've installed several hundred systems throughout Canada and the US over the last 8 years, predominantly starting in whey filling, pouch filling, jar filling, as well as pre-roll automation. So everything begins with a project or an application, and typically we're following the lead of our client base in understanding what their needs are. How much product do they need to produce, what formats, and the nuances of child safety and their marketing, per se.
Great. And have you noticed, because you said you just started working with some clients here in Europe, I mean, some of the trends, especially when it comes to automation in the US, I mean, and also Canada, have you noticed some of that also over in Europe, or do you think are there different problems that you need to address?
I think we are far more similar than we are different. Really the delivery process of the product, whether it's a pre-roll, a pouch, or a jar, is incredibly similar. In fact, there was a lot of booths here at the show selling packaging, and it's essentially the same, which makes it, I think, the transition much easier for an automation company like ourselves. So I think, really when you're starting with the client, everyone has the same concern and the same needs in automation in the cannabis space. Reduction of giveaway, accuracy is of the highest importance. How do you maintain your margin? How do you keep your margin, not give away your margin? But moving into the actual styles of packaging, very, very similar. And then again, with a focus of serialization and child safety.
Okay, great. And Yogesh, maybe onto you, because I mean, extraction has moved, leaps and bounds in recent years, and I think, we could probably have a whole panel discussion just on extraction alone, but still sticking to automation. I mean, how have you managed to integrate automation into your extraction system?
So when we look at automation in general, I'll take a step back here and see if you could divide it into automation technologies for the extraction and processing space. So this is from seed to sale. When, say, you cultivate a product, you're growing, you have the traceability of the seed and the genetics, etc. From there on to pick and pack solutions for using robots to separate out the flower that goes into, say, convection heating or cold heating, and then gets milled into the product based on the client requirement, or goes into extraction per se, and then the use of new technologies like butane that are come around the block, and old technologies that like CO2 extraction that have been around in the other herb and spice space that are being utilized in cannabis. So it's been used. We've been tying up. There's a lot of use of machine learning and artificial intelligence, where there has been use of SCADA systems and recipe management systems that not only improve patient safety, better traceability, and also reduce the waste. So it's essential for waste management, where all of this data is being logged, and you can reduce the waste of particular harvests and then reuse them. And then that's a whole new industry of what's coming out of the recreational, medicinal, and the nutraceutical space in cannabis. So throughout the whole space, and then in the end, as Nick mentioned, is use of robots. So robots technology for packaging solutions, etc. So automation is not just being used from on the extraction space, but the whole value chain has been using automation in different phases. And the data is essential there to be used using blockchain or AI, so that the data is uninterrupted, not maintained across the board, and increases safety and better waste management. So.
Okay, wow, in a nutshell there. So, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in also on automation. I know where the vape industry has come from back in 2014, where everything was manually made. Now, automation is now a standard for C-Cell, and now we're in Indonesia with 100% automation, and it's really been incredible to see the lack of failures. Getting to the point where the cartridge is so dialed in for the end user, the lack of failures and the reliability has really come tenfold from where it was 10 years ago.
Okay. Streamline the whole process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jürgen, I don't know if you have anything to add on that front?
Yeah, in our case, automation is mainly happening, of course, in our production facility. And of course, there are several steps like welding, soldering are fully automatized. Stock system is fully automatized. So, of course, you rely on a lot of automatized processes to be able to really have a high quality output.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, all right, let's stick with you, Jürgen. So, I mean, I know that, and also Chris especially, you're leveraging a lot of technology and, trying to enhance the cannabis user experience. So I was just wondering, how do you actually, leverage technology and actually integrate it into a device, without, I guess, mitigating or without upsetting the sort of end user experience?
Yeah. Of course, on the one hand, of course, the consumer nowadays is expecting really a high technology device, and he wants also to customize the device, and at the same time he wants to have a simple use of the device. Yeah, so many times you have device where you have, like in our case, the craft, you have a one-button device, and just the user uses one button, heats up, and when he gets green, he can inhale. But at the same time, you need to have also personalization, and this we are realizing via an app, where you can personalize your experience, depending on the device. Like with the Volcano, you can even make your own workflows, a certain temperature for a certain time, and then you go up with the temperature, and many people are experienced with their terpene profiles and doing things like that. So the web app also allows you to get a statistic about your usage. You can also access a lot of information. And today we have, for example, for the Venti, we have released our first time an over-the-air update. What you can use. We have never done this so far before. So the over-the-air update is also interesting technology where you have to be a little bit careful that everything works out. If you roll it out for 10,000 of people, But so we have done it the first time, and of course then you can also add on technology in this regard. So this is on the consumer side, on the usability side of the devices, and of course on the construction of the devices. Also, if you look here to the Venti technology, you see there's a flow meter, a very sophisticated flow meter built in, where we can really adjust the temperature control to the draw strength of the consumer, and this gives then a really extremely equal vaporization, because extremely equal temperature, and this leads then to a very good taste, to a very good consumer experience. So I would say that today technology is all over the place. It's in your production, it's in your device, it's in the device of the consumer, and it's obviously complicated because of course you have to have it, let's say, under control. It's because with every device, it's getting more complicated, but it's extremely important. At the same time, there are so sophisticated tools you can use today, so it's really great to be able to offer this technology to the consumers.
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I'll come to you, Chris, but I mean, technology is great, full stop, when it works. When it doesn't, obviously, it's a bit of a different story, and it does add levels of complexity. But obviously, you're trying to make it as simple as possible for the end user, right? So, Chris,
that was actually a great segue, because for us, it's about building brands, right? And when you're building a brand, like everyone in this room, when you're building your brand and you have your oil and you've spent years perfecting your oil, the number one thing you want to do is you want to put it in a quality device that's going to deliver for your patient and not only have the best experience, but be the safest as well. So I think that, we at 3Win and C-Cell, we've spent many years with our technology and just driving to have the perfect vaporizer for your oil. And we have a research lab in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we actually spend even more time on that, really dialing in your oil to the perfect vaping experience, making sure that the resistance and the ohms and every part of the device is dialed into your oil, because everyone's oil is so different, right? Everyone has the best oil, right? But to dial it into what is best about your oil is what we strive for, and we've been extremely successful at that. And that's why I think that the Curaleafs and the True Leafs and the Crescos and the largest brands in the world are all C-Cell, because we feel like they know, wow, if we're going to put our name on a device and we're going to sell this device worldwide, we have to have that reliability and the trust factor in that device, because we're launching it to millions of people.
Actually, I mean, how does it, because I can imagine to make sure that you provide that good service and you're not ruining anyone else's brand.
Yeah. High pressure.
Pressure, right? And it's technology. A lot of R&D must go into it. I mean, how does that whole process look like? How much time and effort do you put into something before you release it out and feel that you can trust it?
And I can speak for C-Cell, and it's years.
Years.
We start, when we have our calendar, when we were back in 2016, 2017, we were all doing our things through 2025 at the time. So it's like a 10-year schedule of how we feel like the vaping industry is going year after year, and what's the new innovation, what's next.
Yeah.
and for oil, like think about it, we went from distillate to liquid live resin to rosin to liquid diamonds. So these are all different oils with different consistencies, and that we have to build a device that really is perfect.
Within quite a short timeline.
Quite a short time, as the industry is changing incredibly,
Yeah.
from country to country, from state to state with different regulations. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, to say the least. And Nick, it's also, with Paxim, I know you're working across multiple different verticals, and how do you know what will work for the cannabis industry, and like what new technology have you been able to integrate, sort of speed up your process?
So I think what's most important, when you start any application or any project with a processor, is sometimes less is more and sometimes more is more, right? You need to understand their needs, their production, and the outlook of their future business. So coming back to innovation, things that we're working on, like you had just mentioned, it's constantly evolving, right? You need to read, you need to do research, you need to hedge, and you need to at times take chances and try to lead the market, right? So we've always taken that approach. If we continue to lead and invest in R&D, our competition should always be trying to chase us. So right now, a lot of our investment has been in inspection, especially in pre-rolls. One of I think the most interesting thing about pre-rolls is I've never met two people that could agree on what a good joint is. That's universal anywhere. So we're starting to develop a lot of 3D camera systems that will inspect pre-rolls at as much as 3,000 pre-rolls an hour. That can either be hand-fed or completely automated with a pre-roll machine. So we're focused on traceability, a lot of printing on bags. It's incredible how much time and resources are spent putting labels on your packaging. So a lot of our investment is a real-time printing, direct connection to your ERP, QR printing as well, traceability, and then inspection. That's where we see the future being. Then on the packaging side, sure, automation, weighing, filling. And that's, again, coming back to sometimes less is more and sometimes more is more. For us, the way we look at our relationships is that most of these relationships last longer than most marriages. So you have to choose well. Choose your partner really well, because you're together. So you have to start with a basis of trust. You don't want to oversell your solution. And then you also want to be able to partner with a customer with the resources and the investment in human capital, training, turnover mitigation. So it's a whole encapsulation of just many different things. But ultimately, it comes down to a partnership and choosing that partner well.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
No, I definitely agreed with Nick and Chris. And on the timing thing, it takes a lot of time and effort. But how I see technology and automation, there's always more upside than any downside to trying technology over years. And as a company, we've seen that in our systems. For instance, a CO2 system where 15 years of feedback loop has gone into it to perfect it the way it is. And we keep investing it further with hopes of saying, hey, there's an upside. And the cannabis industry of jumping on it, saying, as it matures, can we be part of the force of the maturing industry and develop new technologies that are helping the market grow? So I think there's a lot of timing, effort, and partnerships that goes into it.
Important partnerships. I think that's a key takeaway there as well. Yeah, and of course, I think a few sort of touched on data, and data is super important in this day and age. You can extrapolate so much data, but I feel like it can almost be overwhelming, and how do you then use that data in the right manner? I mean, how do you guys actually take your data, extrapolate it, and actually integrate it then into your company in a, productive manner? I feel like you have an answer, or Yogesh?
Well, I mean, the first thing about data, that there's so much out there, and there is no end to slicing data further and trying to build inferences which may make sense to your business or your product, or may not at all make sense. And especially with the advent of the buzzwords as we speak in every industry now, artificial intelligence, machine learning, but to know their true nature and what data is useful and what's not is very important, because many a times we've had consultants where you look at data in ways where there is no positive impact. It's just an infinite loop of analyzing and coming to know and no end. So I think the key is to look at the data that's relevant and then use the existing technologies for traceability and for safety and get those automation points in place. How it applies to extraction and processing is we've had sensor data from time, pressure, and recipes that are fed into an automatic system, and that's been most useful in my case.
Nice. I don't know if anyone has anything else to add there, or...
I'll just add that, it's really understanding what your client needs. Sometimes, there's too much data, and you don't need any of it. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, you're running a business, right? And one, you want to be in compliance. Two, one, you want to make money. Two, you want to be in compliance. And it's important to work with your clients and understand and then also coach them. Sometimes you can just be completely inundated with just too much. And it comes back to, less is more. And sometimes more is more. And then other companies, they may run their business very analytically, and others may have a different approach. So I think it's just purely understanding your client base and being able to offer choice. And then be able to take their direction and lead them down that path with always the understanding of not overselling a capability that you don't need, because that doesn't harness a long-term relationship.
No, 100%. Yeah, and just to maybe zoom out a little bit, and especially, Europe, we are a little bit behind what's going on in the US in the cannabis industry, I would say in the cannabis space. And I was wondering if, there are any technological trends that's happened over there that you can see working really well over here in Europe? Just off the...
Well, if I look at like Canada, we're starting in Canada. We're Canadian based, so we had a nice head start about 8 years ago when they had legalized. I think the biggest trend that we see is price compression, right? Where the cost per kilo was significantly higher, same in the United States, and it's forced companies to have to be really efficient, that they can't throw hand labor at it. You just can't. The margins aren't there anymore. I remember early on in my career, it would be, overfill it. It's all good. We need a gram, go to 1.2 grams. It's fine. Everyone will be happy on Instagram. Those days are over. If you give away 20% of your product every package, you go out of business. So what we've seen is that's changed, and companies have to be really aware that overnight the price of this commodity can fluctuate tremendously, right? So you don't want to be in a liquidity crisis because your overhead is just so high and you have so much human labor. So what we've seen is companies are much more nimble, and they're trying to repurpose their valuable employees in more meaningful roles, and we've seen that as being almost the biggest trend.
Yeah, we're definitely, from the vape aspect as well, you're 100% correct. The margins have shrunk so much over the years. So getting into a new market like we're in right now, it's really going to be interesting to see how that is diverted. But I think that in the US especially, it's not so much the race to the bottom, because you hate to always say that. It's the race to an amazing device that you can rely on. And if people can focus on that, I have to hedge that I'm in a great device in order to carry my business forward. So although the margins are shrinking everywhere around us, I have the reliability of a consistent vaping experience for my patients.
Consistency.
I would say maybe a difference also here in Europe, I would say, is that compliance is even more important here in Europe than in the US. In the US, it's not so much followed. People are like, or companies are always responsible for themselves, and there isn't so much from the state side, a lot of regulation, only when it comes to liability. So that is, you only want to protect your liability, but not much further. Here in Europe, of course, compliance on the device side especially is much more important. You need to have any kind of norms you need to follow. You need to have approvals. You need to have third-party approvals. This is something what you need here in the market. And of course, in our case, we are still the only one who are producing medical devices. And there's one point I wanted to touch. So it's important. We have here now a new legal system. That's great, and we have still the medical system. We don't have concentrates at the moment. We will see if it comes over time, hopefully. But at the moment, we are relying on dry flower. Also on the medical side, we are relying on dry flower, and the dry flower you purchase in the pharmacy. At the moment, you cannot do anything with it as a patient. You need to transform it to roll a joint, or you need to make a cookie, or you can use a vaporizer, what is the only validated method available. And so that is very important to have these kinds of compliance, these kinds of approvals and certifications. And if it is not a medical device, you can also go to UL 8139, a great norm for vaporizers, where you can certify your devices. But I think it is important here in Europe that you show your customers that you have some kind of third-party approval what shows the safety of your device.
Yeah, no, and of course, like you said, it is medically approved as well, which is really good, and I think that's
Yeah, and of course, at the end, you need a lot of technology. When we have our technology to be able to really have a medical device, you need it for your traceability, for your whole production system. You need it for your clinical data. You need to show that you have really a clinical benefit, that you have a positive benefit to risk ratio. Yeah, you need it for your post-market surveillance to get your consumer data back. So other clients, are they satisfied? Do they understand everything? Do they understand cleaning protocols? Do they understand how to use it, your manuals and all that? So also here on all levels, you need technology.
Yeah, well, I think so. Technology is king. I mean, and you touched on it, and actually it's a really nice segue to compliance and regulations, because obviously we work in a very highly regulated industry, for better or for worse, I think for better. But, so obviously that comes with its own set of challenges. And I was wondering if, and I think this can actually apply to all of you, how do you actually address these different regulations in different, states or countries, and are you using any digital tools in order to help, mitigate and control, understand that, basically?
So for us to work in Europe, and we are an American company, to work in Europe, there's strict norms around EU GMP, good manufacturing practices, and that and for flour, it follows the WHO GACP guidelines, and it's electronically available. There's a lot of tracking that can be done on the user requirement specification documents now. So a lot of automation has come in role for your qualification of your equipment, for acceptance of your equipment, the coordination with the auditors when they come in to comply a facility if they are, say, making pharmaceutical products. So very stringent norms, but I think they're great, because if a facility goes through it, and especially the kind of equipment, high pressure equipment that they're dealing with, if you don't do that, you could be essentially dealing with a high pressure bomb there, which could blow up if you don't have the right compliances in place. So it's been great. How do we leverage technology now? Everything can be done electronically, as opposed to old days where you need physical pieces of paper to do that. And traceability has become much easier with the advent of technology. So it's been implemented. You cannot enter the pharmaceutical or the API space without doing EU GMP for us as a equipment manufacturer.
Okay. Yeah, like Georg mentioned, that is the key. Obviously, you have to be certified, and the health of our patients is something that we all have to be cognizant of at all times. To have the healthiest device with the least amount of heavy metals. In the U.S., Michigan is the top standard. So across the board in the U.S., we just go by the toughest standard possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. Nick, I don't know if you have anything to add there?
From our perspective, it's really important to research every new country, or let's say in the U.S. state, but every new country that you work in. So for us, we leverage, we have a manufacturing facility in Italy, in Schio. We have manufacturing in Montreal, as well as in Florida. So here in Europe, we very much lean on our Italian engineering force, who are very experienced in GMP, CE. and these standards, right? And no different for when we work with our Canadian clients in Canada. I think, we all live in a Google world. Everything is online, but you can plead ignorance. You have to take compliance seriously. It's important. And then again, working with your client base, different customers have different expectations, different user requirements, but you need the infrastructure, the engineering know-how to be able to remain in compliance. So especially in this industry, pharmaceutical, nutraceutical to a certain extent, is the cost of doing business.
And I'd like to add to that, and especially with the cannabis industry being in a unique spot, because we are constantly intersecting with the food and beverage industry, with the pharma space, with the nutraceutical space, the topical space, and the recreational space. So these norms are in place already, but as the industry grows, because of the taboo that cannabis held before it became legal, the norms have existed. It's just about us picking them up in each of our own companies and being responsible enough to follow those norms. Yeah. So there's no advent of new norms here. It's just that we pick up the right ones when we enter a new country. And GMP authorities for the pharmaceutical space have been kind enough that you would have a different version of that in South Africa versus Europe versus, say, Morocco or the US. But at the end of the day, they're all saying the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe to add to this, I think it's important that also the cannabis sector is really compliant with the normal rules that are available and does not go in a direction to say, okay, because it's cannabis, we can make a workaround or we can be less compliant or anything like that. I think this is the wrong approach. Many times it happens. It happens even to regulators that they say, oh, it's cannabis, you can use this device or you could use that, and even the regulator itself approaches it differently. And so like you see in Australia in the moment with the vape ban, and they say, okay, we do some medical devices with a two-page approval there. You just that's not possible. That I feel is not correct. We must comply as any other industry also complies, because only with this approach we will get the acceptance we need for a future positive development and more ease of access for the consumers and patients.
No, 100%. And I would actually even like to add something also when it comes to marketing. You have to be super careful what you do and don't say. It's very easy to get red flagged. And I think in this day and age of, cancel culture, if you do one wrong thing, you can get into a lot of trouble just by writing the wrong thing. So, also, we use different digital tools to ensure, which territory, what you can and cannot say. And I think that's also very, very important because, you talk about the software, the hardware, but even when it comes to branding, you have to be really careful. You don't say something or do something wrong there. Great. We only have a few minutes, so I was thinking maybe we could, if anyone has any questions from the floor, now would be a good time.
Yes, of course. Anyone have questions? Come on. Really?
One question, just a second.
First of all, thank you guys very much. My name is Nima Vesa, and I wanted to ask Chris a little more about the point about Michigan as a standard.
Yes.
We talk, a lot of these conversations are about top-down standards. What are the opportunities for a bottom-up approach for some of these kind of successful sub-markets to teach and inform regulators at a national or international level to help us move forward together?
That's a great question. So when we're doing our innovation and we're doing our technology and making vape devices, everything being food grade, medical grade, we just go by the top standard. So as far as the standards changing in the future, I would assume that they're going off to the top standard to be more compliant. But the levels are so low that it's almost impossible to get too much lower than where they are. But as far as the bottom-up approach, I'm not quite understanding what you're asking as far as that goes. As far as yeah.
What I mean is if the best example of a regulatory standard comes from a locality as opposed to at a federal level, could the federal or international standards learn from disclosure? I'm from Michigan.
Okay, okay.
Could learn from that as well.
Yeah, so I guess we can hope that the federal regulation, which will come, I think it's just a matter of time before the U.S. becomes federally legal. I think it's on its way, as we now have 40 of the 50 states, and recreation's moving forward, and just about every election there's new states that come on board. So it's when federal regulation comes in, I think they're going to have to go with the higher standard of Michigan.
Any other questions? No? How are we doing for time?
You have 5 minutes.
Wow, okay.
How about some closing statements? Or maybe some favorite dance songs?
So I mean, I'll ask, I know a big buzzword is AI. I know. I think we have to, we have to address the elephant in the room. And Yogesh, I know that you sort of touched on it, and I was curious if Buffalo Extractions, if you guys have integrated AI at all into your workflow.
Yeah, so we've got the data as part of our SCADA systems and recipe management systems, as I mentioned. So for instance, if there's a particular cultivar or strain that's been used at the seed level, that could be traced back to the final product, and the data could be used, artificial intelligence could be used essentially here to fine-tune the cultivar further when it's going into genetics. So it's crossing its ways with genetic engineering there. How is that data useful for the genetics of that particular cultivar, for waste management, as I mentioned, and also if you can increase the efficacy of the product using that data. So this is in the extraction space. Not sure about the post-processing or the packaging, for instance. In robotics, it also intersects with a lot of robotics is in how can we say pick and place solutions is in how can we make them faster, how can we make them more efficient. So I think the keywords in the cannabis industry are efficacy, efficiency, and safety, where AI can be leveraged essentially at every part of the value chain.
Okay, interesting. Jürgen?
Yeah, I would say AI, or in general what we talked about data and what you get out of the data. Of course, we are trying to get the user data. Of course, if people sending the device back, if there's something happening, or if we can get access through the app, and then we really know how the person is using it, how much is drawing it, and we can analyze this data, help with AI, and then trying to really to see also on the regional level. Of course, we sold over 1 million devices in more than 100 countries in the last years. So of course, we have a global presence. You can really say it's a global presence. And of course, on the one side, cannabis is everywhere the same on the globe, and the most humans are the same, or similar to but it's really very interesting how people are using it and what can you get out of the data, what you may not seen by yourself, where you need maybe an AI, and what you need, and what you can then include in your future development projects.
Okay, interesting. Don't know if you guys have anything to add if you're using. I think, Nick, you just did a course right on AI.
Well, I mean, on the machinery side, a lot of our investment now is machines that, of course, self-learning, optimization, but being able to communicate with you about preventative maintenance, wear and tear on parts, when you would require to replace them. So that's really important. And then, I was mentioning earlier that we received our license of Microsoft Copilot. So whoever hasn't used it yet, it's pretty great.
Fantastic. Let's just go to lunch. How about that? Because lunch is very short today, and so we'll take an extra couple minutes. Let's hear it once again for our panel. Fantastic. And we'll be back here at 1 p.m. or 1,300 hours, depending on how you do it. So you got like 43 minutes. Eat fast, which is impossible. This is Europe. Take your time. But be back at 1 o'clock. All right, we'll see you soon.